Welcome to another episode of the Optimistic Met Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Osberger, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about my Mount Rushmore series, and we're going to do shortstops. Going to review the last week with the Mets. They had a series at Citi Field against Colorado. We're also going to touch base and talk about the series in LA with the LA Dodgers. We had a couple of debuts during the LA Dodgers series, so we'll get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about Paul Blackburn and Ronny Mauricio, a top prospect, finally got a call up. We will talk about the injury update of a few of the Mets that should be coming back soon. We're going to talk about the 1986 Mets and their record-setting 108 wins for the franchise. We're going to talk about if the 2025 Mets could either tie or break that record. There was a very interesting thing that Gary Cohen brought up on one of the broadcasts in SNY, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about that. Going to have a little bit of Juan Soto news, like usual. Saw some cool stuff this weekend from him. And let's dive right in and see where this podcast goes. So, let's start off with the review of the last week that the Mets had. The Mets had a series Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this past week against Colorado. They did sweep, and the games were, two of the games were close, but, I don't think any Met fan was really nervous about any of the games that took place. It was like one of those series where we finally got to take a deep breath, and we were able to, as Met fans, at least not be on the edge of our seat and thinking that the worst thing was going to happen. At least that's how I took this series against Colorado. And in the first game, they won 4-2, and were led by, obviously, none other than Francisco Lindor with his 2 home runs. Actually led the game off with a home run. So good to see Captain Lindor doing his thing. David Peterson did battle through this game a little bit. Did go almost 6 innings. But again, he just came off a tough start against LA to start before. So this was a little bit expected, but he did battle through. Only gave up the 2 runs and looked pretty good. So that was a pretty easy win. And then we had on Saturday was the one blowout that we had. It was 8-2. This was a really good game where a bunch of Mets got some hits. We did have Nemo and Soto hit some home runs. That was pretty nice to see Soto get on the home run trail with the New York Mets. He's been, swinging a better bat lately, so that was really nice to see. And Senga cruised in this game. Had a lot of those young Colorado hitters swinging at the Ghost Fork and looked pretty dominant. And I think the Mets have their ace. A lot of people have been questioning whether he could weather the load of being the ace. And, yes, he's pitching every 6th day, so he's getting that extra rest. So it doesn't look like he's being used enough. But this is actually a smart move by the Mets. I think giving him that extra rest, he's looked really sharp in a lot of his games. Haven't really seen him look not sharp. He did battle against the Dodgers, that one start on Sunday, this past, weekend. But, against Colorado, he looked really sharp and looked like he had the game under control. So good to see Kodai Senga dominate yet again. And that was an 8-2 victory. Sunday, and this was pretty interesting Sunday because this was the first time that the top 3 Met hitters, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Soto, all homered in the same game. I actually didn't realize that. That's kind of weird. I don't know if, anybody else noticed that. But, if these 3 guys could get going, that could be really good for this team. And, we'll see how this turns out. I mean, obviously, the offense has been up and down all year. So this was good to see that at least the major players on this offense are starting to come around. And at the same time, because a lot of the season has been Pete Alonso leading the way. Lindor, for a little bit in May, was really taking charge. And Soto's kind of been, if you look at his overall numbers, they're really good, except for the average, which will probably pick up once he starts getting into these streaks, getting hits. But the thing with Soto is that he still has 11 home runs, as I do this podcast tonight. So that's still pretty good numbers. But obviously, I know with the big contract, people are looking for him to step it up. Holmes pitched in this game on Sunday and had, I believe it was 7 strikeouts. And he's really coming along as one of these starters that you could rely on. I thought that, going in with Holmes this season, as I've said in this podcast before, that, the transition, I didn't think it was going to be as smooth as it has been. But, I'm very glad of what, very happy on what I'm seeing from him. It's intriguing. So let's just hope that he could, last the next 4 months. Again, the Mets are going with the 6-man rotation, like I said, with the fact that they have Kodai Senga. But this is also going to benefit, Clay Holmes and the rest of the staff as well. But especially Clay Holmes, with this transition from being a reliever. So the obvious thing would be to, give everybody extra rest. So I think that's, best course of action for this team, and it's benefiting. As you can see, it was still the best ERA in baseball from the starting staff. So everybody's pitching well. As of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that was the Dodgers series. Now, the first series against the Dodgers, we should have swept. Okay. Friday night was that letdown game at Citi Field, that rainy extra inning game. But then we took care of business that Saturday and Sunday. And when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? The Mets really are proving that they could hang with the top teams in the National League. We beat the Cubs. We did pretty well against Arizona. Who else did we face? We swept the Phillies. And these are all teams we're probably going to have to face in the playoffs once the playoffs come around. So it was really nice to see the Mets take care of business against the Dodgers at home. But this was a different animal because now you're going to LA. So, and we didn't have all our best pitchers. We had the back end of the rotation. Even though everybody's been pitching really well, there was, 2 guys in particular I was worried about. And we'll dive right in and I'll let you guys know. It was McGill and Tony that I was worried about. But as Monday rolled around, that was the 4-3 win in extra innings. And, with this game, Lindor starting it off with the home run, it was really interesting to me that this game even went to extra innings because I really thought that it would have went, just regular innings. We had, our somewhat dominant closer, Diaz, come in. We had a 2-1 lead in the 9th inning. And, unfortunately, he didn't get the job done. Did blow his first save. But then he got added inning. And then in the 10th, I thought that was where we really were going to have issues because I said, oh, here we go again. It's going to be like that Friday night game at Citi Field. But lo and behold, the Mets came through and got 2 runs by an unfamiliar hero, Francisco Alvarez, who had a RBI double to lead off that extra inning game. So very happy to see the Franciscos taking care of business in game 1. That was a 4-3 Met win in extra innings. Then on Tuesday, we had another extra inning game, and this was kind of the back and forth, kind of like the same thing on Monday. But this one, the Mets had a storm back. That was the Tyler McGill game that I was worried about. And with Tyler McGill, what was very interesting to me was he gave up the 4 runs in that first inning. And then all I kept getting was text about how, Tyler McGill is, needs to get out of here. He's not consistent. You see, this is what he does. He has one good month, one bad month. I thought this was one of Tyler McGill's better starts because after that first inning, he shut the Dodgers down and really showed me a lot. Unfortunately, the Mets did tie it up and then gave it up in the bottom of the 10th. But again, you saw some really good things by the Mets. I'm not going to kill Nemo for that error that he had in the second game. Not an error, but it was a miscue in left field where he turned the wrong way and then kind of lost the ball for a second and then had the ball drop right in front of him. So that was unfortunate, but Nemo's been pretty solid in left field. So, unfortunately, it was just one of those games where you just had to, take it on the chin a little bit. And, but they did bounce back good on Wednesday. And that's the thing about this team that I like is that they bounce back when they have a bad loss. So on Wednesday, Griffin Canning probably had his best start as a Met. And I say that not because of the fact that he got a win, but it was the way he got the win. Pretty much had the LA Dodgers confused the whole game. Had control of all his pitches, had 7 strikeouts, and just totally dominated that game. We were in control. Obviously it's the Dodgers, so you're not going to say you're not nervous. But I thought we had that game pretty much in hand because we kept getting guys on base, and eventually we were going to get him in. Did not think it was going to be all by Pete Alonso with the 2 home runs and 5 RBIs. That was pretty awesome. So Pete's finding his home run stroke again. He, as of the end of the Dodgers series, I believe he's 1 behind David right now. So he has 241. So, Pete's getting close to that record. So, it's pretty amazing. He's heating up in June again after that rough May that he had. But, he, he'll get there. But the thing with the series that I thought was disappointing was Thursday. So we did win 6-1 on Wednesday with the unfortunate mishap on Thursday. So Thursday was that 6-5 loss that we had that meltdown in the 8th inning. And, it was weird because usually when you think of a defensive meltdown, you think of Pete Alonso throwing the ball away, or you think of Alvarez having a pass ball. This miscue was by Brett Beatty, who's been pretty solid. So that was disappointing. And, he did speak to the media after the game and did, say, you can't make a play like that. I should have threw the ball home right away. He kind of double clutched and then threw it a little low to Alvarez, and then it got away. So, that led to the tie. And then obviously we lost it, the lead after that with some hits by the Dodgers. And, again, this is a series that I look at just like the one on Citi Field where, we had the Friday night extra inning game. Every single game the Mets could have beat the Dodgers. So I looked at it and I said, we won the season series 4-3. And we beat ourselves. So that should be what we take away from this series. Not the fact that we could have won 3 or could have won 4. I don't really like the sport world saying shoulda, woulda, coulda. Anybody really could say that. You could win any game if you, make all the right plays and you get lucky. But it's the fact that I think we proved to the Dodgers, we proved to ourselves, not that we didn't already know this, but we, I think we closed the gap with the LA Dodgers. And by that, I mean, I think we could beat the Dodgers. Now, I believe it. I thought it at the beginning of the year. After seeing these 7 games, I think everybody could agree that we have a good shot. So let's just be happy with the way we've been playing. Speaking of the way we've been playing, usually I do a standings update. So as of right now, the Mets are 39 and 24 after 63 games. And we have a 1.5 game lead on the Philadelphia Phillies, who kind of hit a bump in the road themselves. So, it's good to have, some easy games on the schedule in Colorado, because that kind of helped us out with the Philadelphia Phillies being ahead. But that's how the standings go. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. It's going to be up and down. So, we won't be in first the rest of the year. I'm sure we'll fall down to second place eventually. But, we're in pretty good shape right now. So I think we should be happy with the way the Mets are playing, because this time last year, I think it was beginning of June, or, could have been maybe late May. I think it was around June 1st where the Mets were 11 games on the field last season. So, when you look at that and you say, oh, we were 27 and 36 at this point last year after 63 games, and now we're 39 and 24. That's a 12-game difference. That's awesome improvement. So, again, I think when, we lose some tough games, we sometimes get down on ourselves. But I think the Mets doing pretty good. So, being in first place, going on the road now to face Colorado, a series that I think we should sweep. Let's go back home to Citi Fields to play the Nationals on the 10th. Let's be 42 and 24. And let's see how many games in first will be ahead of the Phillies. We're going to need some help from other teams. I think now the Phillies are going to be going to Pittsburgh for 3 games. So we'll see. Maybe Pittsburgh could steal a win or two for us and help us out in the standings. Right now, it's for the taking. So let's just keep the pressure on the Phillies. On another note with the standings, Atlanta keeps losing. So that's good to see that, Atlanta's not the Atlanta Braves of old. Obviously, that's because of injuries. So, speaking of the injuries with the Mets, do have some news for the pitching staff. So, Montas did have his first rehab start. It didn't go that great. I'll let you guys look that up because the numbers were just really bad. I didn't even want to bring it up. I know he gave up like 3 or 4 home runs. I'm not sure how many earned runs he gave up. But, I try to look at the positive with this pitching staff, right? Because it's one rehab start. He's going to have a lot of others. So let's just be glad that he's on a mound for the first time this year. And it's in a Triple A game. So we'll see. Meaningful games. So really nice to see him back on the mound. Hopefully he could straighten out some stuff. Jeremy Hefner could fix some things and tweak some things. And we'll see. I think Montas is going to be a nice upgrade to what we already have. And look, if Griffin Canning can turn it around and do what he's doing, then there's no reason to think that Frankie Montas can't, do the same thing. With that being said, more importantly, Sean Manaea, I think, in a week, they said, is going to start a throwing program. So that's really good to see. Really need Sean Manaea back. He was a horse for us last year. Was a warrior. Need that guy on the mound. So really good to see him not having any more setbacks. And hopefully he'll be on the mound pretty soon. I think they said we should hope to have him back by the All-Star break, maybe late July. So that'll be really nice. Get this pitching staff at full strength and then just let it ride. And then, see where it goes. The bullpen's still doing what they're doing. If we get more guys in the rotation, it's only going to make it better because then guys can get the proper rest and we won't have to rely on the bullpen so much. So with that being said, the offense got a little bit of a upgrade this past week with Ronny Mauricio making his season debut. I thought it was a little bit early for this, but he's been killing it in AAA, batting over 500, bunch of home runs, doubles, stolen bases, playing really good, getting his confidence up. So the only reason why he's up right now is because I think the Mets needed to get a spark with this offense. And also, you had the injury to Mark Vientos. He pulled his hamstrings. He's going to be out for a while. So hopefully he can get healthy and then hopefully have a good second half. Unfortunately, Mark Vientos not having the best second year with the New York Mets as the third baseman / DH, having a lot of problems offensively. Not the same explosiveness that we saw last year. So I have a theory, not a theory, but I was watching the game tonight and I thought about, Mark Vientos being hurt and Ronny Mauricio now getting his turn. This kind of reminds me of when Beatty was having his issues and got hurt, and then Mark Vientos took over for him. I'm not saying Mark Vientos will be stuck in AAA because obviously, that's not the case. What I wanted to say was that I think, could this competitive nature on the Mets saying, we're going to have some position battles and have guys battle things out, could have a positive impact, yes. But I also thought about it. I was like, maybe it could have a negative impact too, I thought about Brett Beatty's development, right? And how he's finally coming along and how he's been playing. And then you look at that and you go, okay, well, now he doesn't have any pressure. And now you're finally seeing him grow as not a great third baseman, but definitely a serviceable third baseman. He's been playing great defense. And he's figuring it out offensively. And I think that's because he got to relax finally and say, you know what? I'm going to have a role in this team. It might not have been what I thought it was going to be. But at the end of the day, now you're seeing a more relaxed, more confident Brett Beatty, right? When the pressure's off, when there's nobody behind him that's trying to steal his job. Now you have Mark Vientos, who was struggling, and Brett Beatty was doing good. So I just thought there was like a little bit of a comparison with maybe when you have a guy chasing you and trying to get your job, how maybe that could negatively affect you. Thought that was interesting to bring up because I was just like, wow, their roles reversed. And it was kind of interesting. And now with Vientos getting hurt, I feel like Mauricio could now, I guess, steal Mark Vientos' spot. I hope not. I hope that all of them can blossom and be a part of this team. But just kind of interesting. And then I thought about center field and how guys are trying to win that job down in AAA. Mets got to nurture these guys carefully and got to nurture this situation carefully because you don't want to raise up one prospect and then kill another. At the end of the day, you wish you could keep everybody. Obviously, that's not realistic, but I guess it's a good problem to have, having all these position battles at the end of the day to see who comes out of it. With the stars we already have, and then you add in a lot of these young guys. It's really nice to see the competitive nature come out. I just hope that some guys don't get lost in the shuffle. That's all. I'm always the positive guy. I always get excited about prospects. So, thought that was kind of interesting that, roles got reversed. And now we're going to see, hopefully, the redemption of Mark Vientos. But, with that said, wanted to talk about really quick Juan Soto this past series. Was seeing a little bit of the cockiness come back, a little bit of the swagger. which was really cool. One thing in particular I thought was kind of cool was, and credit to the SMY cameras for picking this up, and then they stuck with it with like a camera in camera, which I thought, you know, that effect was really cool. They had a camera in camera effect, and it was that Soto and a bunch of other players. So you had Luis Angel Acuna, you had Jose Siri, you had Ronny Mauricio, everybody hanging out. This was right after the Pete Alonso home run on Wednesday night when it was already 6-1. So the Mets were kind of relaxed at that point, kind of having a good time. Everybody joking in the dugout, laughing. And then they have a water bottle. And you're like, oh, well, there's a water bottle there. Then you see all the players start doing the bottle flip game. Now, if anybody has ever played that game for the younger audience or even the older audience that doesn't know what that is, basically flip a water bottle and then you got to make it land on its, land up without falling down. So everybody's flipping the water bottle. And Acuna's making it fall, not making it stand up. Siri's having problems with it. Mauricio's laughing at everybody. He's trying it. He's not getting it. Then Soto jumps in. And of course this would happen. Soto flips it once and it stays up. And then he's running around and he's laughing with his teammates. And I just thought it was kind of cool that SNY picked that up because there's been a lot of speculation and a lot of media talk about how Juan Soto's not happy being a New York Met. What I saw this past weekend at Citi Field when they were playing Colorado was a little bit of the Soto shuffle coming back, a little bit of his cockiness, a little bit of his, smiling and nodding at the pitcher and, getting inside the head of the pitcher. He was doing that a lot against the Dodgers as well. And, it was really nice to see that all of that was BS and that Juan Soto is back. Really, really good to see. So we can put that to bed. He wants to be a Met. He chose to be a Met. And he's having fun being a New York Met. So for all those Soto haters out there, knock it off and be nice. With that being said, last topic before we go into the Mount Rushmore Series, which I'm very excited about because it's shortstops. And, that's a fun position that I really wanted to talk about. Two of my favorite Mets played that position. So it'll be really fun to talk about that. But before we get into that, just wanted to talk about Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez broadcast. I think it was the Sunday game against Colorado. So at a moment in the game, they were talking about how the Mets had won 23 at that point. They were about to win 24 at home. So the Mets are 24-7 at home. Just to give you guys the numbers. Really impressive. The only other time that they started that good at home was the 1986 Mets. And then what was cool about that conversation that they had, Gary and Keith, was that they brought up, how many wins did the 86 team have? And Gary said 108. And Keith had forgot what the overall number was after the World Series. For those of you, it's 116. So 116 games overall, they won in 86 to win that championship. And no other Met team has really come that close to that record. And so Gary kind of brought that up. He says, hey, just saying for you fans out there that, something for you guys to think about was the 86 team and the win total. And, could this 2025 team do that? So right now, after 63 games, as I do this show, the Mets are 39-24 after 63 games. So I did a little research and found out that the 86 Mets after 63 games were 45-18. So they have a 6-game difference between the two right now. 2025 Mets are 6 games behind the pace. Can they match that? Well, I did the math. So for the Mets to actually pull that off, they would have to go in the next 99 games 69-30, just to tie, not even to break that all-time record. Can they do it? I looked at the schedule, and I mean, obviously anything could happen, but I was looking at the months that we have left. I said, okay, mathematically, for the Mets to actually pull that off, they would have to win roughly around 17 games a month. So 17 games for every month, and then they would have to win. They would have to win one more after that. So 1 month they would have to pull off 18 wins. That's a lot to really pull off. So I don't think this Met team is going to do it, just on the fact that, well, let's look at both, right? Let's hypothetically say they might be able to do it. You look at the positive. Okay, Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor have to keep having these career years that they're having, right? These great starts, and keep it up for the rest of the year. Then you have to factor in, okay, all these other supporting guys doing well. Jesse Winker coming back. Maybe he, provides some offense. Maybe Juan Soto has 1 or 2 months where he goes off and goes crazy. So could the offense itself win 69 games the rest of the way? It's possible. Then you factor in the pitching staff. We're getting guys back. We're getting Manaea back and Montas. The bullpen's been really solid. Diaz looks like he's back to form, close to the 2022 Diaz. You add all these factors in. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. But then you also look at the fact that, you got teams like Detroit, we still got to play. We got to play the Phillies. We still got Atlanta. We got, teams like the Nationals that might give us a problem. Seattle coming into Citi Field. We still got to go to Chicago. There's a lot of points in the schedule that you look at and you go, the Mets are going to have to sweep a lot of teams too to pull this off. So I don't think that they will. What I will say is that they're ahead of where I thought they would be. Definitely. I looked at this team and said maybe 95 wins at the start of the year. I think they might break 100. They might come close. I'm going to just stick with what I said and say they're going to win 95, 96 games. And I'd be okay with that. Really solid. And I think, being, 6 or 7 games better than you were last year is nothing to shy away from, not to be ashamed of. Because I think that the pitching will take a step back. And I think that's what's going to hurt this team, actually getting that record. Because that 86 team had, all-time greats like Doc Gooden. And, yes, we have Kodai Senga, but he's no Doc Gooden. So, again, you had Ron Darling, Bobby Ojeda. Plus, you had a great team, great defensive team. This team has a couple of flaws that they got to fix before they, get to 69 wins. But, again, thought that was something interesting to talk about. But, again, we'll see. Hopefully they do it. I'm going to be rooting for them to do it. But, again, talking about a lot of things going right. And that means that a lot of these losses, like the one we just had to the Dodgers, where you blow a game that you should have won, can't have any of those the rest of the way. So, with that said, I think this team is probably going to win 90 plus games. I got them winning 95. So, I think that's pretty good. 95 wins. Should definitely either win us the division or it should put us in a pretty good position to make the playoffs. So with that said, the final segment of my show is the ever popular, I hope, Mount Rushmore series. So the last 2 weeks I did first base and I did second base. So now I'm going around the infield and we're going to touch on shortstop. Now this is a pretty interesting position for the New York Mets. I think it's a rich position for the New York Mets. They've had a lot of good shortstops. Other positions I thought were a lot harder. So this was kind of easy to go through the history of these guys. And, I saw, I'm not going to really stress out about who the fourth member is going to be like I did with first base and second base. For those, you could watch my podcast show on YouTube for the last 2 weeks. Just, check those out when you get a chance. Those are really good. With the first member of the Mount Rushmore shortstops, Bud Harrelson, who played 13 seasons for the New York Mets, was a World Series champion back in 1969. The Miracle Mets. So I know a lot of you older Met fans will appreciate this selection. Bud Harrelson was also a two-time All-Star back in 1970 and 1971. Was more of a defensive shortstop. Looking back at his numbers, he had a lifetime .234 average with a .287 slugging percentage, a .324 on-base percentage, and he had 1,029 hits. He did manage the Mets briefly in 1990 and 91. I thought that was a pretty cool stat. And he also was a shortstop that won a Gold Glove. He won that Gold Glove in 1971. So Bud Harrelson, pretty impressive career, and a beloved Met. So congratulations to him for being, one of the all-time shortstops for the New York Mets. Second on my Mount Rushmore list, Jose Reyes, the exciting, electrifying shortstop back in the 2000s. So this is kind of a biased pick because I grew up watching Jose Reyes. Jose Reyes played 12 seasons with the Mets, was an All-Star in 2007, won a Silver Slugger Award back in 2006, had a lifetime .282 batting average with a .433 slug, had a .334 on-base percentage, had 1,534 hits as a New York Met. And two stats that I really love about Jose Reyes, and what I think a lot of my friends and other Jose Reyes fans would agree, was the triples that he used to always have. This guy was one of the best, I don't want to say triples hitters, but I guess that's what you can call him. Had 113 triples. Really impressive. And I thought another cool stat that he had, and I haven't seen another Met do this, was he had the single season record for steals back in 2007 with 78. I don't even think I've seen a Met steal 30 bases, let alone 78. And I don't think anybody's ever going to come close to that single season record either. So congratulations to Jose Reyes. You are the second member of the shortstop Mount Rushmore. Third on my list is, I guess he's a beloved Met. He was the first shortstop I saw growing up as a Met, and that was Ray Ordonez. So Ray Ordonez, the wizard at shortstop, as a lot of Met fans would call him, because he was known for his defense. Played 7 seasons with the Mets, was a 3-time Gold Glove winner back in 97, 98, and 99. So 3 straight years. Really impressive. He was another member of that 99 best infield of all time with, of course, John Olerud, and then you had Robin Ventura, and you had Edgardo Alfonso playing second. So Ordonez was at short, and, still one of the best defensive infields I think I've ever seen. So congratulations. He also had a 245 batting average, so it wasn't really known for his offense. We used to always joke with my fans saying that the Mets had 7 hitters, and then you had, 2 non-hitters, because back then the pitcher had a hit. So we used to always make fun of Ray Ordonez for not being good at offense. But 245 average, had a 304 slug and a 290 on base. Really not a great offensive player. Anytime he got on base, I think my fans would go nuts, because it definitely helped. But mostly known for his defense, was a wizard. I remember countless plays where he would do the unthinkable. Next and final member of the Mount Rushmore at shortstops is a guy who's still playing. And the reason why I'm putting him on the Mount Rushmore of Mets shortstops is because I think he's going to end up breaking a lot of records as the Mets shortstop. He is none other than Francisco Lindor, who's played 4 seasons so far for the New York Mets after being traded to us. He had a Silver Slugger Award in 2023 and 2024, was the runner-up for the MVP last year in 2024, if not for Ohtani having that just ridiculous season that he had. I have no doubt that Francisco Lindor would have won the MVP. So hopefully he does get an MVP eventually, because he is having another really great year this year. But, unfortunately he fell short last year. But runner-up is still nothing to shy away from. That's still an honor, in my opinion. Had a 259 batting average so far, lifetime with the Mets. 460 slug with a 336 on base. Has already 596 hits. This was at the start of the season, so obviously he has more now, but he also had 110 home runs to start the year with 359 RBIs, and was one of the 30-30 players in Met history. So that's 30 steals and 30 home runs. Did that back in 2023, and was either it was 1 home run or 1 stolen base from doing it last year. So, just incredible from him. Definitely a professional. He's definitely learned how to be a leader. And it's just really fun to watch Francisco Lindor lead this team. And really glad to have him. Really feel spoiled to really have him. So, just to recap the shortstop Mount Rushmore, again, Bud Harrelson, Jose Reyes, Francisco Lindor, and Ray Ordonez. I think that's a pretty awesome list of shortstops, if I say so myself. And, I think this is one of the most complete Mount Rushmores that I'm probably going to do in this series. Next week, I will be doing third base. And then I really can't wait to do catcher either, because I thought that was really good research that I did there. But before I leave, don't forget to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed today's podcast and any other podcast that you've seen on this channel. You could also follow Optimistic Met Fan Podcast on TikTok, as well as Instagram and Spotify. So I think that's it for today's episode. I don't think I have anything else. With that said, have a great week, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Like always, stay amazing, and let's go Mets. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.